Well, hello. Welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. Jim Valley is an American singer, songwriter, musician, philosopher, and educator. Jim began his musical journey with the band The Viceroys in the late 50s, who a few years later would become one of Seattle's most popular bands at the time. Then in the mid 60s, there would be a stint as guitarist and co-lead singer with Don and The Goodtimes. Finally, Paul Revere asked Jim to come on board his band, the Raiders, to replace their guitarist who had left to join the National Guard. And in 66, Jim did just that. He would stay with the band for a year, leaving in 1967. Mr. Valley then went solo for a period, trying his hand at crafting and releasing his own material. After forming a couple of short-lived groups in the early 70s, a trip to Europe in 1977 found Jim street performing. Then, having finally moved back to Seattle area in the late 70s, Mr. Valley found his life's calling. Rainbow Planet, a program to help children open up and express themselves through music, dance, and art. Starting out locally, this musical ministry has expanded to reach children all over the world. Well, welcome, Jim.
Hey, thanks, Greg.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for
I'm happy
taking
to
time
be
out.
here.
I'm glad we figured out the technical side of things and got you on board. Well, take us back to the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Tacoma in 1943. I was just a kid.
Okay. You were just a kid when you were born. Well, that works out. Well, you have fond childhood memories?
Of that birth?
Yeah, coming out of your
Well,
mother.
I was told I was born breech, which is sort of, interesting. But I was the ninth baby to be born on that day, and because of that, I had my first press, and they said, Jimmy George Valley was born on March 13th last night. Yada yada yada.
Oh, okay. I just heard a ding. I don't know if it's on your computer. I don't know what that
Yeah,
was.
my
Okay.
computer dings once in a while.
Okay, it's dingy, huh? Okay. Well, how about early on? Do you remember hearing music in the household?
Yeah, I mean, both my folks played piano. My grandparents on my dad's side belonged to a country Baptist church where I used to go in the Sundays and loved that music. They had two trombones, two trumpets, old time gospel music that just rocked my heart.
Wow. Some of that old time religion. Wow,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Right. Well, you mentioned your parents playing the piano. Did you ever have like sing-alongs at home?
Well, we sang in the car a lot.
Okay.
Me and my what were some of the songs? Barrel of Money and all that stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, what was the first musical instrument that you learned to play?
I learned to play the trumpet in the fourth grade. I mean, I wanted to. In the third grade, we had a test that showed whether you had any ability, and somehow I passed the audition, and I wanted to play either the clarinet or the violin, but my dad had an old coronet up in the attic, and so
Yeah.
that's what I played. But I mean, I loved it. I learned to play with tune a day for trumpet, and in the fourth grade, I would join the orchestra, within about 3 or 4 months, and then
Okay.
that was my instrument.
So you played in the band at school. Okay. Did you meet any other musicians or aspiring musicians at that time?
Well, I mean, there was an amazing oboe player and a magic violin player. But in the seventh grade, I mean, my life changed. You got to wear nicer clothes to junior high school, and rock and roll came in, and I just spun around. And what can I say? So still playing trumpet, and I played trumpet in a kind of a sit down Glenn Miller kind of band. We were called the Moonlighters. And in the ninth grade was a turning point in my life. Um, the Moonlighters played at the special variety show at the junior high school, but then they brought in a special band from high school in the area called the Frantics, which later evolved into Moby Grape. But the Frantics came in, you know, plaid Pendleton coats, black flannel pants. Just, I mean, their instrumentation was electric guitar. And the guy had been playing for a long time, and accordion, and stand-up bass player and drummer, and they played like "Work with Me, Annie," "Honky Tonk," just blew us away. And I went up later and said, "You guys need a trumpet player?" They told me they didn't really need a trumpet player.
They didn't need one. So they went down well, huh, with the audience?
The what?
Everyone enjoyed it in the audience.
Oh, they loved it. And
okay.
around that time, I was in a choir, a really special choir at school, and there were 3 girls in that choir that were coming to choir practice early and sharing some of their songs that they harmonized and wrote early rock and roll doo-wop music. And so they taught me these 4 ice cream chords, and I wrote a song about one of them, Cassandra. And my next door neighbor, who was a year older, said, "Hey, let's make a record. I know a guy that just got a set of drums for Christmas, and a guy that plays the saxophone really great, and a guy that has a guitar."
Oh, all right. I already had a guitar. Wow.
Well, but that didn't mean that was his dad's. It was an acoustic guitar missing a couple strings. He never really learned to play it, but he came to our first practice and just beat on it.
Yeah.
And that was our band. We were called Vince Valley and his Chain Gang.
Oh, okay. Okay. Wow. Had any of the guys been to prison before?
No. But after we played 3 or 4 songs,
Yeah.
and I'm playing piano, and I went out and somebody said, "Hey, Valley, how long you been doing this?" I said, "About 3 months." And he said, "Oh." That's all he said was, "Oh." And I knew that then that we weren't really a rock and roll band because we didn't have an electric guitar. We didn't have a bass player.
Right.
So
Right.
I went and my dad signed for a guitar for me. And I learned to play the guitar. And so by the time I hit high school, I already had this band, but found a piano player, and then I became the guitar player.
Oh, okay. Do you remember your first guitar? What kind of guitar was
It was
it?
a Dan Electro.
Do you still have some of your musical instruments? Have you kept them?
I've kept some of them. The Dan Electro, I traded in for a Stratocaster, but quick story about when I got the Dan Electro, when you bought a guitar in this store, which was a block away from where Jimi Hendrix bought his first guitar, which he bought a Dan Electro. Within a couple months, he did better than I did, but Jimmy did. But I'm still here.
You're still here, man. That's right.
But anyway, this guy, his name was Prince, country guy, and he said, "Hey, Vince, I'm going to learn you how to pick that thing."
Yeah.
And so at that point, country music and rock and roll were 2 different worlds. And I said, "No, you're not. I'm going to go home and learn how to play like Elvis," who I later discovered was a country artist.
Yeah. Yes. Well, can you remember one of the first 45s or albums that you got?
Well, I used to buy 45s. Yeah, I bought like Elvis's songs and Fats Domino, "Ain't That a Shame," "Why Do Fools Fall in Love."
Oh yeah.
Great songs.
Yeah.
Everly Brothers.
Oh yeah, great harmonies, great harmonies. Yeah. Well, how about artists and musicians that you were starting to get into as a teenager? Those same artists.
Our band played mostly R&B instrumentals.
Yeah.
That we picked up from here and there.
Okay.
Like Bill Doggett, "Honky Tonk."
Oh, okay. Right.
Things like that. We didn't do too, we had a singer that would come and sing like 3 or 4 songs a set.
Okay.
Over the years.
What about the music scene around you at the time? Was it developing, the music scene around you?
Well, some of the bands started recording. There was a band from Tacoma called the Wailers.
Yes.
And they were kind of the bad boys of rock and roll in our area. But they were amazing. I mean, their first album was called The Fabulous Wailers, and mainly instrumentals. They didn't have a bass player. They had 2 guitar players, one a lead guitar, Rich Dangle, fabulous guy, wrote the songs. The other guy played ta-dum, some very simple kind of bass lines.
Yeah.
And anyway, so they had a record in 61 or 59 called Tall Cool One, which became a national hit. And
Okay.
they were on American Bandstand. So
Yeah, that was before.
Northwest
Yeah,
Northwest California.
that predated. Didn't that predate the Ventures? That was before the Ventures, wasn't
Well,
it?
they were around the
Or
same
just
time.
around the same time. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Walk Don't Run, and the group Come Slowly to Me. The Fleetwoods were from
Yeah,
Oklahoma. They were in
that's
that same round.
that's right. Yeah, I like some of their stuff too. It's really really nice. Male female harmonies. Well, we'll
Beautiful.
talk about the formation of the Viceroys.
Well, the Viceroys, I told you, it started with me on piano and a guitar player that didn't play. But
Uh-huh.
by the time I hit high school, which was like a couple months later, I
Yeah.
found a piano player that worked with the football team. That was like a manager sort of,
Okay.
and Al Berry, and he was a great piano player. And then there was a guy in my choir, and the Bud Potter, and he said, "My mom will buy me an electric bass and a bass amp if you'll teach me." And I'd been
Okay.
playing like 4 months, and I said, "Yeah, sure, I can."
Yeah, I'm an expert now.
And
Yeah.
we had a drummer, and so we played. I mean, it took us a year before, almost that first year. At the end of the year, we played our first dance for I
Okay.
think $50, and we were on our way.
Ah,
We had a
yeah.
black singer from Garfield High School, which is where Jimi Hendrix went. If
Yeah,
I
yeah.
if my family hadn't have moved, I would have gone to high school with him, with Jimi Hendrix.
Is that right? Wow. Okay. Wow. Just missed him. Well, you guys became pretty popular in the Seattle area, didn't you?
Yeah, we had a record in '63 called Granny's Pad, and that
Yes.
kind of put us on the map. And at one point in '64, we played a place called the Pipo Club in Seaside, Oregon.
Okay.
And we were supposed to have 800 kids. And we
Uh-huh.
get down there and we have 80 kids. Well,
Oh,
this is great.
oh,
Where are the rest of the kids? Well,
yeah, right.
the next seaside, city, up the ocean, there's a band from Portland, a new band from Portland, and they're wild and crazy. Kids just love them. They wore three-cornered hats. Really?
Yeah.
And they're called
Yeah.
Paul Revere and the Raiders. I said, God,
And
what
the
a cool name
Raiders.
is that?
Right,
And
right.
so that was my first, every time I've heard of them. And then a month later, Viceroys are playing a place, an iconic dance hall in Seattle called the Spanish Castle. And
Yeah.
a guy named Pat O'Day, who was a promoter, called me up and said, "So Jimmy, would you share your stage with this group I got out of Portland? They're supposed to be really good. They're called Paul Revere and the Raiders." I said, "Yeah, I'd love to see him." So that's the
Uh,
first time I saw him. I somehow was intuitive enough to know not to come on after them.
yes,
And
yes.
they just
Good,
blew me away. I mean, Drake
good.
was there, and Smitty
Uh,
and Mark and Paul and
they were all there. Good
different
choice.
bass players.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you mentioned Granny's Pad. Paul Revere and the Raiders would redo that would themselves. They would cover Granny's Pad, Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Well, they would play
Yeah.
it. Yeah, they knew it.
Yeah.
So they liked us. And we were not a competition because we were kind of, by that time, kind of jazzy rock.
Okay.
And so they got us an audition at a place called the Peppermint Tree in North Beach in San Francisco that changed my life. And
Okay.
I got involved with, uh, philosophy and things down there that change your viewpoint.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
anyway, that's when the band, wasn't into it, and I thought I was crazy, and I was going to go to jail. And so when I came back home, I left. I decided to leave, and before I left, there was an advertisement on the radio about this band from Portland that were wilder and crazier than Paul Revere and the Raiders. They were called Don and the Goodtimes.
Fun and the
So I
good
went out
time.
to see them, and they were great. I mean, the drum was just,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Don McKinney was this great lead singer, and they asked me that night, "Do you know any guitar players that sing? We're looking for a guitar player." And I said, "Let me think about it." I was thinking about other guitar players, and that
Uh-huh.
night I was tossing and turning, and all of a sudden I realized that I was the guitar player.
Yeah, they were talking about you.
Called them up
Well,
and said, "I found you a guitar player. It's me. You'd leave the Viceroys?" I said, "Absolutely."
yeah.
And we became Don The Goodtimes became a giant. I wrote a song for them called Little Sally Tees,
Oh yes, yes.
a big
I
hit in
know
the
what you,
Northwest.
yes, I know that one. Yes. And that's one of the band's biggest hits too.
Yeah,
Little,
right.
little,
And
well,
it was the Kingsmen recorded it, and
yeah.
the Chandels recorded it. It's on both of their greatest hits albums.
Yeah. Well, go back just a little bit. I think it was a little bit before. Tell a story of one of the Cavalcade of Stars with Stevie Wonder.
Okay, so that's a highlight. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were Granny's Bat, 63, early 64. We're called up by Pat O'Day, who's the promoter, and he did this thing, Cavalcade of Stars. The Beach Boys were the headliners, and they asked us if we would back like April Siemens, Nino Tempo, Freddie Cannon, Little Eva,
Yeah, pretty
uh,
good. Yeah.
Ray, Ahab the Arab,
Yeah.
Ray
Yeah, what's
Stevens.
his name? Yeah, Ray Stevens. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful man. Anyway, so we're rehearsing all these songs so we can, and it's at the Opera House, beautiful place. And like the last minute, well, 2 weeks or a month before the show, Fingertips comes out, Stevie
Oh,
Wonder,
yeah. Yeah.
and was just like, wow, listen to that, like Junior
Yeah.
Ray Charles, and so he gets to be on the show. He's a headliner and supposed to have his own band. We get there, we're rehearsing like 11 or 10 in the morning, and here comes little Stevie Wonder, 13 years old, with a drummer.
Yeah.
And the road manager looks at us and they said, "Well, you're not backing because we were this, white, Doris Day band from."
Yeah.
And so I said, "Well, we weren't supposed to back him." And so I said, we're gonna find a band." So they leave. They're, the drummer and the manager and Stevie. They come back right after the Beach Boys have finished their set. And they come in with a trumpet player and a saxophone player. And they look at me and they said, "Okay, you're backing him." So without a rehearsal, we backed him. But what was it? What was his song? His first record, Stevie Wonder.
Yeah. What was that? I'm trying to think. Steve.
Anyway, two chords,
Okay.
fingertips,
Fingertips. Okay.
fingertips,
Typical
two chords. And then he played "Bring It On Home to Me," which we knew. And then he played "Hallelujah" by Ray Charles, which we knew. So we backed him. And I wish someone had taken a picture, but because
Oh, wow.
we were invented or something.
Didn't have anybody there.
But then there was an intermission of a couple hours before the afternoon show.
Yeah.
And somehow I had the kahunas to ask the road manager if I could take Stevie to lunch.
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah, just stick out your arm." I put his arm, "Be back in an hour."
Yeah.
Okay, so I take him to this place called the Food Circus, and we're having lunch. And these two teenagers come up, and they somehow recognized him. They said, "Can we have your autograph?" So in his pocket, he had a little business card with a picture of him and Stevie Wonder in Braille. Now, wouldn't you think that would be an amazing souvenir for these guys? No, they wanted him to sign it. And I said, "Come on, give us a break. We're having lunch." And Stevie said, "No, I'll sign it. I'll sign it." So he signs it. And then he looks at me, he said, "My mama always told me to be kind to everyone." And that's like Stevie Wonder's charisma to this day.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Very
So
nice.
that was an amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
Amazing
He
memory.
didn't have to do. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to sign it.
No.
Wow. Wow. That's special. That is special. Wow. Yeah. You get a lot of mileage out of that attitude too. Wow. That's great. That's great. That's great. Well, going back to the Don and the Goodtimes when you joined, around 65, wasn't it? 1965, I believe.
65, and we were just hot. We were kind of like the Rolling Stones lightly of the Northwest.
Don Gallucci was the former organist with the Kingsmen, right?
Right. He was the leader.
Yeah. Yes. 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 And what did you think of the band's get up with the top hats and the tails? What did you
It's
think?
great. I loved it. I just loved it because you put this outfit on and you were rock and roll.
Yeah, that was quite unique. Well, Paul Revere and the Raiders were too with their get up. Well, and you mentioned Little Sally Tees. We talked about that. The band played a show at the Whiskey A Go Go, and the house band was Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention.
Right.
Do you remember that show?
Yeah, we were not a big deal. I mean, we
You
came
were
up with our top hats and tails, and we're doing boop boop a doo and whatever.
yeah,
And Frank Zappa was saying "plastic people," bum bum, So
yeah,
we were not the whiskey a go go crowd because the Doors were playing there at that around that time, and
yeah,
Van Morrison, and we come in doing, our 4-chord rock and roll,
yeah.
and so it was not a big deal. But there was a time at the Whiskey a Go Go after Monterey Pop, right?
Uh-huh.
Monterey Pop was on whatever weekend it was, and on a Sunday night, whatever, Jimi Hendrix was playing at the Whiskey,
Okay.
and a friend of mine said, "Let's go see him." Okay, so we're up in the balcony, waiting for him to come on. And he comes through the bathroom door. And he looks at me and he says, "How you doing, man?" And I said, "Good, good." And my
Yeah.
friend says, "He recognized you." I said, "I don't think so. I don't think so." But yeah, I did. Because he would have said that to anybody. I mean, I
Uh-huh.
think. But
Yeah,
he came on and played Wild Thing, and
yeah,
definitely got
yeah,
my heart going.
yeah, yeah. Wow, wow. Well, you're one of the few people, yeah, that can you can put that in your CV. Jimi Hendrix spoke to me. He talked to me. Yeah,
Yeah, how you
he
doing,
said
man?
hello. How you doing, man? Well, well, relate the story now of how you came to join Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Well, then the Don The Goodtimes, we're down in Hollywood. We're doing the Lloyd Thaxton show, and we're signed by Dunhill, and we think that we're, you know, 9 feet from from becoming nationally known.
Yeah.
And at that time, Drake is joining, getting to drafted or whatever. And Paul calls me and he meets me outside our motel and he gives me his spiel that he'd like me to join the Raiders. And I said, I'd love to, but but on the good times, we're this close to making it. And he gives me this story about how so many bands are this close, but they don't really make it. And they've already made it. They're on Where the Action Is. They're signed with Columbia. Columbia wants to take them to Europe. Some movie companies want to do a movie with them. And he throws dollar signs in front of my eyes. And
Yeah.
I go talk to the band, the Good Times. And they said, we think you should join them. So I do. So
Okay.
it turned out that my first, well, they fly me to LA, and I have like 2 weeks to learn their stuff, but they're all too busy to ever have a full blown practice rehearsal. So
Really?
I practiced with Fang for a while. I practiced with Paul. Paul was the one that told me simply how to do this Raider pony step they did on stage.
Yeah.
And so then during that week, in fact, I think the first couple of days I was there, they traveled to Miami or Orlando to do some shows. And Drake misses the flight.
Oh, wow.
I mean, they flew me so I could watch them do their show. Drake misses the flight. So we're in Orlando. Revere is fit to be tied.
Yeah.
And the show's starting. They
Yeah.
kept putting them back in the order. And at one point, I'm putting on Drake's outfit, hats coming down over here, look like I'm a clown. And then right before they're ready to come on, here comes Drake through the door. So he'd rented a Learjet and got himself to Orlando, and
Wow.
he played the gig.
Yeah.
And then we come back to LA, and I'm rehearsing with Drake and Phil. Drake's showing me guitar parts, and then our first gig, our first concert is in New Mexico with the
Oh, the Playboy. Yeah.
Gary Lewis and the Playboys, and it's a Dick Clark spectacular show, and all the Steve, I can't remember his name, Steve something. Keith Allison is on the show, and all the accent dancers, and so we have a half-hour rehearsal before the show, and that's the only rehearsal I had with the full band before I started playing with them. But I knew
Wow.
the stuff we did,
Yeah.
and we get out and we do our show, and I hung by my legs from a pipe, what do they call it? Pipe railing in front of the band,
Yeah.
and played Louie.
Yeah.
And Paul gives me a double take, and he comes on, after the show, actually 3 days later,
Uh,
because the idea was I'd do this tour with him, and if the band liked me, I'd stay for 6 months. If fans liked me, then I had a job.
oh,
And
wow.
after 3 days, Paul comes to me and said, Harpo, you're in. We've never
Uh,
felt so good, sounded so good, yada, yada, yada. So
yeah.
I was a member.
You remember? Well, tell us how you came by the nickname Harpo.
Okay, so when I was in Don The Goodtimes, top hat,
Yeah.
we were playing a Portland teenage fair, and it's kind of a rainy afternoon on a Friday, and one of the ladies that was a beautician said, "Let me come up to my room and let me lighten your hair."
Okay.
Okay, being a good sport. So she strips it out, and I'm blonde, and I have curly hair, kind of wavy
Oh,
hair. And so the
okay.
next day we're playing. I have a top hat on, blonde curly locks, and the Raiders are playing the show too. So as they're walking in, Revere looks at me because we'd known each other by that time, and he said, "Harpo." So later, when it got time when I joined the group, he said, "You know, everyone has a nickname, and I think we should either be Dobie or Harpo." And I said, "I really like the name Dobie." And he said, "Okay, Harpo it is."
Right. The one you didn't like. That's
Well,
funny.
it was a great character because
Yeah.
I had a horn, got a horn in New
I was
Orleans.
gonna, yeah, mention that too. And you play that on live shows too, right?
Yeah,
You would,
yeah.
yeah.
Honk, honk, honk.
Right, right. Well, it's interesting to note that you guys and the Kingsmen recorded Louie almost at the same time.
Right. Same
Almost.
studio.
Yeah, isn't that wild? Yeah,
Well,
but
you
the
know,
Raiders,
the Raiders are with Columbia, huge
right?
label,
That was the
but
difference. Yeah,
their guy, follow the bouncing ball, whoever that guy was,
yeah,
uh, he knew that rock and roll was on its way out,
yeah, yeah.
65 or 66. The
Right,
Kings, so they didn't promote it at
right,
all.
right.
And the Wand Records which was it was a local label called Jeriden Records, and he got it on Wand, and they thought they were a black group. And then the Jack Ely, who was singing the lead, kind of mumbled the words, and the radio station thought there were some really rude words in there, and
Right.
they were banned from a couple of radio stations, which made it all the kids want to hear it.
Exactly,
So it became
exactly.
the definitive recording, and it was really pretty cool.
Right, right. I talked to a guy recently who their albums had some suggestible images on the cover, right? And some of the outlets where it sold records banned it, and even though record stations wouldn't play it, but that just fueled the fire. The fans wanted it more,
Right, right.
because of
Boston,
being banned.
Boston, yeah.
Right, right. It worked in reverse, but any kind of promotion and advertising is good, is even if it's negative,
Sure.
But yes, so the Kingsman version was pushed nationwide and became huge. Yeah, like you said.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean,
but
it's definitive.
the hits did come, like Stepping Out, Just Like Me, Kicks, of course, big one, Hungry, Good Thing, Him or Me, just to name a few.
Right.
So they were, you guys were churning them out. Yeah, quite a
Well,
bit.
Terry Melcher was the guy. Terry Melcher was like a Brian Wilson.
Right.
Doris Day's son,
Doris
amazing,
Day. Right.
amazing, like royal kind of guy.
Right.
And,
Right.
and so Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, uh, they had first given kicks to the Animals,
Okay.
and the
Okay.
Animals said, "Nix, nix, we don't want." It's an anti-drug song.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The Raiders took it. I mean, people played kicks and lit up.
Yeah. Right.
Uh, but so that was their first major hit, and then they gave them "Hungry,"
Yeah.
and then a little known story is that the third song they gave us was a song called "Long Way to Go," which is this amazing magical song.
Yeah.
And Terry Melcher worked on it for a week. Had like Ry Cooder playing oud, dun, 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 and
Yeah.
bow, down, down, dun, 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 gong, 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 gong. Beautiful, beautiful song arrangement. All done. Mark Lindsay went in to do the vocals and somehow was having trouble sustaining some of these high notes or whatever. And Terry Meltzer started having a breakdown, started hearing things out of tune, and they scrapped it.
Oh, wow.
A week of working on He said, Terry said at that time, he said, he spent more money on this one song than usually they spend on an album.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
scrap that song, and they released Great Airplane Strike. And history went on. Well, then, short story, I don't know, 20 years later, I get a call from somebody at Sony who had bought Columbia, and they were going to re-release, or they're going to release a collection of the Raiders to try to turn them into the bad boys of rock and roll instead of being kind of Dumb and Dumber. And I said, well, so what songs are on this album? And they gave me a list, and one of them was Long Way to Go. I said, that was never finished. Right. Well, their producer got to go into the multi-tracks, found this song, loved it, asked Mark Lindsay about it. Mark did not remember it. I'm sure did not remember it. And he said, if you give me the tracks, I'll make up a song to go with it. The background vocals were all done. So he created this song that was, to me, no big deal. And they sent me, a tape of it. But the other part of that story is that in 1967, I went to New York with Dunhill and did some promotional things, and ran into Laurel Nero, who I'd met on a Where the Action Is series, and she was great. We had a good time together, and she said, "Well, come and spend the night with me." Okay. So she has a little piano that's like 66 keys, and we're talking about the song that I was doing that I didn't even get to play on. And she said, yeah, that happened to me too. And I was telling her about Long Way to Go. She says, oh, I have an acetate of that Barry Mann sent me.
Wow.
And she gave it to me. And I had my engineer in Seattle make it into a CD or whatever. And we gave it to Sony and showed them that this song was Barry Mann, Cynthia Weil, Screen Gems Publishing Company. Yeah. And so they hoiked what they had with Mark Lindsay's version of it.
Really? Wow.
So that was my addition to that.
Isn't that something? Wow. Yeah. To hear that, years later, wow. That's great. A lot of these labels, that kind of unearth a lot of this material and then we'll remaster it, and put it together, nice packaging and everything. A lot of these are really, really good labels that do that. Well, none of the songs that you had written were ever recorded, and you never got to sing on any track. So you were kind of discouraged and a little disenchanted.
Oh, I did get to sing on some songs. The Raiders would go into a Army something studio and record songs for Where the Action Is.
Okay.
So there were 3 songs that I sang lead on, which was Stand By Me and Bad Boy by the Beatles, and Rain, 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 Rain. That song. So I did get to sing on those.
Okay.
And they're pretty cool.
Yeah. But all in all, you were a little disenchanted. And
I was heartbroken.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was ready. We were ready to record my song that I went on Spirit of 67. And Mark came out of the men's room saying, I just wrote a new song. It's got to be on this album. I said, Mark, we already got 8 songs on this album. It's Harpo's turn.
Right.
No,
right.
You're new, Harpo. You can be on the next album. And somehow Terry can't, let him get away with it. And that was the beginning of the end for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I would be in the same boat as you. Yeah. I would definitely be discouraged at that point. Yeah. Yeah. You kind of saw the writing on the wall, didn't you? Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So then the end, the actual end, I mean, I was with him for a year, and we were magic on stage. I mean, we couldn't do anything wrong. We were just ta-da. And anyway, we were getting ready to do our last tour. We were getting ready to do a 90-day tour, and we went into some club, the Hullabaloo Club in Hollywood, to do a rehearsal. And Mark says, okay, I want to learn Little Girl in the Fourth Row.
Okay.
And I had been in the group a year, and I went, no, Mark, that's not a song for us to do in concert. And he said, well, you're new, Harpo. You're only, I said, no, I'm not new. I've been here a year and we're a band. We're a band now. And that's kind of started, the ball rolling and people started shouting and yelling. And pretty soon Paul Revere said, okay, everybody go out to lunch by themselves. And we'll come back and we're going to have a meeting. So we
Okay.
had this meeting.
Okay.
And that's when what they'd say, the shit hit the fan.
Okay. Okay. So that's
And,
when it,
and
yeah.
there,
That's when
there was a concept or a promise that Paul had made with the Raiders even before I joined them.
Yeah.
Because he was upset with Drake for smoking weed and he was close with the Byrds and David Crosby. And so asked me if could you stop doing that? I said, yeah, for sure. And I was honest. I said, yeah, I could do that. So the day that I get there, join the Raiders, and I'm staying with Mark Lindsay, and the phone rings, and it's a girl for me. I didn't know anybody, but Drake gets on the phone. He says, "Hey man, come up the street. I'll meet you." Okay, so okay, Mark, I'll see you tomorrow. And I come up the street, and here's Drake going to where he's staying, and we're sitting down with 3 or 4 people, and he rolls out a bag, he rolls a doobie, and I said, "No, I promised Revere I wouldn't do this." And he said, "Oh, we all promised Revere, and we just have to be cool." And everyone does it. I mean, even Mark does it. I went, well, that's cool. So my abstaining lasted for a little over a day.
Yeah. Just don't let him find out.
Yeah. Well, it was
Yeah.
that time,
Yeah.
Jackson Brown, Lovin' Spoonfuls. I mean, the Beatles, everyone.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I love Jackson Brown's early material. I love it.
So
Yes,
I met Jackson Brown. There was a group that was produced by Terry called the Gentle Soul. And they were Pamela Poland, and in fact, Jackson was an early member of them. And they were kind of like my soul brothers and sisters. And at one point, Pamela says, "Oh, Harpo, you got to meet Jackson." Jackson was 18 then. I was 23, and met him and he was playing me a couple songs and just turned my music songwriting around.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Amazing. I love his music to this day.
Oh yeah, I do too. Yeah, he would have a way of doing that. Yeah. Well, how did you become interested in Kurt Bocher and what he was doing?
Kurt Bocher Belcher. Well, there was a love-in LA, 67, 10,000 people, everyone streaming.
Yeah.
And toward the end of it, I see this girl with red hair and velvet purple dress, and we just kind of look at each other like in a movie, and we come together, and it was huge, Her name was Michelle O'Malley, and she played in Kurt's group called The Ballroom.
The Ballroom, yes.
And so she took me home, or the next day I went to meet them, and she says, "Come and live with me, and live with us in Kurt's little mansion." And that's how I met Kurt, and he was just sparkly eyed.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
He loved my music. He loved my song. He said, "I want to record you." So we went into whatever studio and we did 3 songs. One of them was Try, Try, Try.
Right.
And then later, when I was signed by Dunhill heard that version and they decided it wasn't heavy enough on the bass or something.
Yeah.
They brought Kurt in with his executive producer, and I was going through kind of a dark night of the soul. And they said, "Well, what do you think, Jim?" And I said, "I don't know." And they said, "Well, we think we want to bring in the Wrecking Crew and have them record your song." So they brought in Larry Knechtel and whatever. I wasn't even there. And they did this track that just started at point A and went to point 5, and hardly any dynamics. I sang over it, had to sing twice.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, to me, it wasn't a big deal, but they released it and it didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And then Gabriel Meckler became my producer. You know that name?
I've heard of him, yes.
Gabriel produced Steppenwolf.
Okay.
And Three Dog Night and produced Janis Joplin's last album.
Yeah.
But he earlier was producing this group called Lamp of Childhood.
Okay.
which one of their members lived in the same place that I rented, which was one of uh, Greta Garbo's first Hollywood mansions.
Oh, wow.
Really
Wow.
cool place.
That's great.
Anyway, he was playing in this group called Lamp of Childhood. Gabriel Meckler was producing Den Hill. They came to me one day and said, "We think you should leave the Raiders and join this group." I went, "Wow, I think I'd like to." So that never happened, but it let me know that I could surrender, release that group.
Right.
And so later, Gabriel was given Steppenwolf to produce.
Yeah.
And he said, "Would you co-produce this with me?" And I said, because he said, "You're rock and roll." And I said, "Yeah, but I can hardly find my way to the bathroom." So during their recording, John Kay, right? They're
Yeah.
doing Born to Be Wild. And
Yeah.
his voice is just on a scale of 1 to 10 of raspiness, he's like about a 12.
Yeah.
And Gabriel doesn't know how to change that. And
Yeah.
so he asked me to come in and talk to him. So I said, "So John," I said, "so on a scale of 1 to 10, take your energy down to like about a 7."
Yeah, right.
And he said, "Okay." So he did it. Gabriel said, "Perfect." And that was the recording.
And then that was a recording. Wow. See, you should have gotten credit for that
I know
on
I should. I should have gotten royalty. I never did.
that. Right.
But I remember it. It's a great memory.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I want to go back to Kurt. I love that sunshiny pop he's associated with, like
Oh,
Millennium, the Millennium. I've got a
yeah.
couple of Millennium and Sagittarius. My
Yeah.
World fell down. That track that they had, really, really nice.
So see if you
Sunshine.
can if you can, I'll burn a
Okay.
CD up. It's called The Ballroom. So
Yes.
that
Yes.
was the music he was recording when I first met him. But it was
Yes.
just beautiful music.
Well, what was it like being in the midst of the Laurel Canyon scene in the late 60s?
It was great. I lived on Yucca Trail in this magic little, looked like leprechauns could have lived there.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was seeing Jackson and Blood, Sweat, and Tears. One of the bass player lived next door to me. I didn't, and I knew was who I hung out with. It was Denny Doherty from the Mamas and Papas.
Yeah, right.
Up at the top of the canyon.
Right.
But I didn't really, and I knew Neil Young a little bit, but I didn't really hang out with all those people because I was, Harp. I mean, the Raiders weren't, I don't think, cool to them. Somebody said they didn't look good on TV on LSD.
Yeah, that's funny. That's what. How about did you ever run into Joni Mitchell?
No,
Okay.
I met her at a concert once later, but a Jackson Brown concert when she first came to Seattle.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I've heard stories too of her out there. Well, returning to Washington State, you worked for the railroad for a little bit.
For a year. It
Yeah.
was a good thing to kind of get me back into normal.
Okay. Okay. Back in the normal
Yeah.
normal mode. Was that must have been hard work though, right?
Well, it was, you're digging ditches, you're climbing poles. But like backtracking a little bit,
Yeah.
right after I left the Raiders, at one point I, went through a dark night of the soul and tried to take myself out. And I you know, came back to life. And my manager said he knew a guy up in Big Sur, Esalen Institute, that was a uh, psychologist into Christian mysticism. And I had kind of a mystical experience. And so I went up to see him. And 3 or 4 days later, I came out of this. It was kind of a 6 month long depression. And about 3 days later, I kind of came out of it, had another heart opening experience. A little voice said, "Follow the river." And I followed this river and found this cave and lived there for a month. And it was, amazing part of my life. Totally amazing. I fasted for a couple of weeks and started writing songs. And so when I was working on the railroad, I was also starting to sing in churches, not actually in a church, but youth groups. And this, my boss did not like that, thought that showed a sign of weakness. So he did not like Jim Valley. He would just say, you know, you dumbhead, you whatever. And then at one point, we we go down to a different location, you know, out of Seattle, and we stay in these outfit cars, and this we're in this cocktail lounge. At that time, I'm not drinking. I have a glass of orange juice, and this one of the waitresses comes up, kind of rotund, and said, "Jimmy," you know, and she's looking at me, and I'm trying to go, "Who is this?" You know, and she worked on a ship called the Dominion Monarch that was an important part. The Viceroys played on the Dominion Monarch as a floating hotel during the World's Fair. We did this TV show called The Deck Dance, and she was on that. She worked on the ship, and so she said, "Do you have your guitar with you?" So the boss guy that did not like me said, "Well, go get your guitar, Jimmy." So I come in and play a song for her, and my boss is Twitter pated. All of a sudden, I'm his long lost son.
All
So
right,
then I got really easy jobs on the railroad.
Oh, after that. Thanks to her too.
Right.
Yeah,
Thanks to
that's
Norma.
nice. That's nice that she remembered you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that's
was great.
yeah, yeah. That's funny how things like that happen in your life, kind of
Yeah.
steer
But
you in different
let me
directions.
just say a few words about the ship. It was
Yes,
called
yes.
the Dominion Monarch. It
Yeah.
came from Liverpool. It was totally first class ocean liner. John Lennon's father was the something on that ship, you know, during the end of World War II.
Oh, okay.
And so the same deck where we played, John Lennon's dad was walking around.
Wow. Okay.
In a small
That-
world.
yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Wow. That is nice. What was the name of the ship again?
Dominion Monarch. I'll send you a picture of the Viceroys on it.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Do that. Yeah. Dominion Monarch. Wow. Okay. So you had even a link there to John Lennon.
I didn't know that
I
at the time.
didn't know that at the time. Right.
20
Right.
years later, I read that in a book.
Wow. Wow. Well, oh, your son Timothy wrote a song at age 5
Right.
when he was
Well,
5 years old.
yeah. So I'm living in San Diego. You know, we're in a hot tub, and he says, "I broke my bones in Louisiana." I said, "What'd you say, Tim?" He said, "I broke my bones in Louisiana." He's 5, and
Yeah.
we never talked about Louisiana. He'd never broke any bones.
Yeah.
Like I turned it into a little kid song, and
Yeah.
it's became the Rainbow Planet almost theme song.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that song?
Yes, I have. Yes, I
Okay.
have. It sounds like an old blues
Yeah,
tune. I
yeah,
broke my bones in
yeah. I
Louisiana.
know. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind of like the Rainbow Planet orgasm.
yeah. Right. I like that. With lots of colors, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There you go. But at 5 years old, does he remember that
Oh
when you
yeah. In
bring it
fact,
up?
he's done really well in his life. He's a drummer.
Okay.
He plays in a couple of bands down in uh, Orange County.
Yeah.
Has 3 beautiful kids, all or 2 of which are in college right now.
Yeah.
And uh, he comes up, and stays with me from time to time.
Yeah.
So, and I
Yeah.
have 3 kids, 2 daughters, Vicky Ray, Jamie Lynn, both of whom are into music.
Okay. Did he ever do that live or re-record the song?
Did he do what?
Did he ever play it live or re-record the song?
Bones?
Yeah.
We might have. I mean, I have a band called the Jim Valley Project, and at one point we were between drummers, and he came up. He was up here, and he played with us one night, and we would have hired him if he would have lived in Gig Harbor.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's something else. Well, how long did the band Sweet Talking Jones last? Mm,
About a year. Actually, they lasted a year after I left.
okay.
Andy Paripa was the bass player. He was from the Sonics,
Okay. Okay. Right. Right.
and Greg Beck took my place in the Viceroys. 63 when I left the Viceroys, or 64,
Yeah.
and it was a fun band.
What kind of music did you guys play?
Well, we played like some early rock and roll, uh, shake my nerves, rattle my brains. We
Oh,
did come
okay.
up, we did a few of my songs. We did some Busking.
Oh, okay.
So pretty cool stuff.
When did then you formed the Shoestring Orchestra and Choir?
Right. So that was one of my favorite bands also.
Oh, was it?
Uh,
Okay.
and so when I moved back to Seattle from LA in 69, the place where my wife rented, the the son of the owners of the house came up to paint the garage or paint something. And I mean, he was 15. His name was Mark Willett. And so we became friends. And at that time, I was starting to sing in, like church related things. He was kind of involved in that. And he was 15. When he turned 21, I had left Sweet Talking Jones, and we decided to form a duo. And our duo was called the Shoestring Orchestra and Choir.
Uh-huh.
And so we played some Fleetwood Mac, some uh, uh, Van Morrison, some of my songs, and later we formed a band with a bass player and a drummer, Don. Don, God, I can't think of Don's name at this point, but great guitar player.
Yeah.
And we played for about a year.
Okay.
I'll send
Was
you some of that music if you'd like.
yeah. Yes, I would. I
It's,
would. Yeah.
it's going to be on an album that's going to be called Jim Valley Gems, from
Okay.
some of my archives, some newer stuff.
Well, how rewarding was it working on the musical play about the 12th century children's crusade in France?
So that was an amazing creative adventure. I was living in San Diego, I think 76, and this guy named Oscar Iguado, comes down from Laguna Beach with his protege, a girl named Gretchen, and they're teaching this kind of moving meditation. Just, just, I'd never seen a happier person in my life. And when he walked, he was dancing. And so, and I told him, I said, I think I sing from the same place that you moved. And so they came into where I was staying, which was the carriage house of a large house. And he brings in his friend, turned out to be Lover, who had written this play. And I don't even remember that other guy being in there, but I sang him a few songs, and he said, I think you could write the music or set John's lyrics to a song. So later I go up to Laguna, but Gretchen, right off the bat, I went, I like this person. So we became a unit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she's living in Laguna Beach. So I went up there, met John, got the play, got all the lyrics. He had like 25 songs. And then I had, supplemented with some songs that I had that I thought could fit into the play. And he agreed to all of them. So they were like 30 songs. And we rehearsed, we auditioned kids and grown-ups. And the play only was produced or presented for like, maybe 8 times at a place called Orange Coast College in we're Costa Mesa.
Okay.
That's how that happened. But it was amazing. And Timmy was 5 or 6.
Oh,
He'd
he
come
was
to
still
the
here.
rehearsals. And I was in the play. I sang a song called Pied Piper. But it was amazing. There was a guy named Taras Semenuk, who was Ukrainian, full-blooded, pure Ukrainian who was my musical assistant, but he, and we arranged vocal parts and choir parts for a lot of these songs. But it was just an amazing experience. And later that summer, that was like 77, Gretchen took me to Europe and we performed in the streets.
All right. That was my next question. Yeah, what took you to Europe? Okay.
That's how that happened. And that was an amazing experience as well.
Oh yeah. So you did a bit of busking? Did you do some
Busking.
busking?
I didn't know that word, but I learned it.
Okay.
I
You
learned
learned it.
that at one time in Paris, we're singing, and I have a little 1927 Washburn. You want to see it?
Yeah, I sure do. Mhm. Wow, there it is. Wow, there's one of your guitars. Wow, yeah, you can tell that's pretty old.
Anyway, so at one point we're doing our thing, which was unique because I'm singing and she's dancing this beautiful, kind of lyrical dance. So it wasn't some guy just strumming a song.
Yeah.
And so we would draw fairly nice crowds. And there was this guy that was down at the end of the block, and he comes up later and he said, "How long you been busking?" And I went, "Busking, performing on the streets. Oh, a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Don't you know you're supposed to be, at least a block away?" And he said, "And the problem is, what kind of guitar are you playing? I hear your guitar strong and clear. I can't hear my guitar right next to me."
Wow. So you like that.
Yeah.
Hey, good comment. Good comment there. Did you have a hat you passed around?
Yeah, we had a little rainbow knitted hat,
Yeah.
but I learned right away that we had to announce ourselves. We just couldn't start playing.
Right.
So I'd say, whatever country we was in, we sing and dance for you.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And
Wow,
then at
so
the
you
very
brought
end, I sang, "I've been working on the railroad" or something, and Gretchen would go around with her little hat. One
yeah.
time in Switzerland, we're playing before we get on a train going into Italy. We're playing, by this restaurant out in the streets where people are all sitting and having wine and so on. And we finished our like 5 songs, and the crowd is saying, "No, no, one more." So we play another one, and then a constable comes up,
Oh,
and we're under arrest because we didn't have a permit. And
yeah. Yeah.
and I'm saying, oh, he says to me, "Sprechen Sie Deutsch?" And I had taken German in high school, but I basically failed it. But I could say, "Nein, sprechen Sie Deutsch?" And he goes, "Sie sprechen Sie Deutsch?" I said, "No, ich bin ein Dummkopf." And so it takes and eventually some restaurant owner comes and said, "Let them go, let them go. She's a beautiful dancer." So, and we had all this coins,
Right.
but they let us go, and
Okay.
so that was a good thing.
Oh, that was a good. I was going to say you could have bought the cop off with the money that you.
Here, take
Here, take
loose change.
take our change. Wow, that's something. Well, did you? Which country was the most warm? Did you get the most warm reception from? Do you remember?
Well, we landed in Amsterdam. I don't even think we played on. We might have played at a. I might have played at an open mic there, but I think in Scotland and Italy and France, Greece.
Yeah.
But like in Greece, we would go to these overnight places. I mean, hotels, and ask if we could play at their outside restaurant.
Oh, okay.
And we did that. In Germany, yeah, we got big crowds in Germany.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Did you ever play? You played just out on the streets. Did you ever play like down in the subway or the metro?
Yeah, we did once. We did once in Paris. Yeah.
Okay.
There were some amazing musicians down there.
Right. Yeah, I've heard from some of my interviews, people that would busk down there in the subways too, and kind of get a good acoustics too,
Oh yeah,
playing.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
There's a
yeah.
there. Do you have my album Rolling Sea?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Well, I don't know what we can talk about then. But anyway, there's a song in there called Street Dance that I wrote after the fact.
Uh-huh.
We sang and we danced in the streets last summer in lands called the old country. There's a line in let's see, we made our money in the sub in the we were singing in the subways of Paris. We blew it all on one French dinner. Vanderslice and me. That was her nickname, Vanderslice. Actually, her middle name. But I'll send you that song too.
Okay.
Oh, Street
Well,
Dance. I think you'd enjoy that one.
okay. Well, I'm just racking them up today.
You are. I'm going to write these down.
You're right. Oh man. Well, moving forward, back in the Seattle area, 1978, you produced the album Dance Inside Your Heart. Yeah, yeah. What do you
Right.
recall?
And I thought that was going to be an album that would really set me up with colleges or whatever. It turned out it was a scam. I mean, a scam. It was a tax shelter company. So we did the sessions,
Yeah.
did the album, produced the album, had 5,000 copies, and it just sat on warehouse floors.
Really?
So
They
it
didn't
never
know
really
that.
got out there.
Wow, wow.
But at that time, the Shoestring Orchestra, I had met a guy named Jim Hoke.
Okay.
And he later moved to Nashville. And he's been with me for years. He played on that album. He plays like 13 instruments. Just an
Wow.
amazing player.
Wow. That's literally multi-instrumentalist right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Man, I can't even play one instrument. I can't imagine that.
Well, it's not too late.
That's what people say, right? That's what they always say. Well, Rainbow Planet. Tell the story.
Okay, well, there was a time when, I mean, I was working part-time as an asphalter. Early
Watch
19
the way you say that. Watch the way you say that word. Yeah.
asphalter. Well, there was a friend of mine, a guitarist, Charlie Beaker, who was an amazing guitarist,
Yeah.
and did asphalting. And he said, "Would you like to work part-time?" I said, "Sure." And anyway, at that time, I got a call from like a guy who was like an uncle to me, Carl Delaccio. He was married to a woman, Jeannie Delaccio, who became a famous photographer. Took pictures of rock and roll bands in the Northwest, Don The Goodtimes, the Wailers, the Raiders. Anyway, he called me up one day and said, "Would you like to work with gifted kids in Tacoma Public Schools gifted program?" I said, "Absolutely." So that started it. And then after about a year of doing these workshops and so on, I was asked by a principal in that area if I could write a song that would help kids learn to get along and come and present a workshop in their school for the whole school. And I went, absolutely. So I wrote a song called Rainbow Planet. We all ride the same spaceship, kind of like Buckminster Fuller's idea of spaceship Earth.
Yes.
And it became a hit. And the workshop, started me, first around the Puget Sound area, then around Washington. Then I did a teacher's workshop down in California, and teachers from all over the U.S. were there. And then I was going to New York and Florida and Chicago and all over. And then a couple of years later, I was asked to come to Rio de Janeiro. Would I ever consider coming that far? And I went, let me think about it. Okay, I think I can do it. And I started international schools, and I've been to 23 countries.
Wow. Wow.
But I
More
love
travel.
working with kids.
I was going to say you did more traveling doing that than when you were a musician. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then I was with the Raiders.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Wow. Well, that must be very rewarding work doing that.
Absolutely. Beautiful.
Yes, yes. And when you see the results of your work and do you hear from kids later on as they've grown older and
I do. I do. I
Yeah,
get
yeah,
once in a
yeah.
while I get a letter or email like, I was with you when I was in the first grade. I think
Right,
much about it. I became a songwriter because of you, and
right,
yada yada yada.
right. See,
So I feel,
that,
yeah, I feel really lucky and blessed and fortunate.
yes, I was going to say doing that, definitely that kind of work, that it is like a ministry and that you're touching these kids and making a difference, having an impact,
Because you
you
get
know.
to love all of them.
Right, right, exactly. And their parents, I'm sure, are appreciative too of that kind of work and how you really reach out to their kids and help the kids. That's nice. That's good work, as they say. That is good
So
work.
it's based on friendship and
Right,
peace and
right,
colors and uh,
right.
the earth and
Yeah, and
environment,
it's
all the good stuff they wrote
all the
they wrote
good,
books about.
yeah, universal things. Right.
Yeah,
Very,
yeah,
very, very true. Are you still involved with that?
a little bit since COVID, and I'm
Yeah,
81, so I'm kind of temporary or partially or semi-retired.
yeah.
But yeah, I still do some work, and it's still wonderful.
Yeah, it's got to be that because that feeds you too, as well. Yeah, it's like a full circle kind of a thing. I mean, ministers to them, but it ministers to you, at the same time. So you get so much out of it. Again, I'll send you this probably, like I said, next week. Not this immediate week, but the following. That I can send you the link, you know,
Okay.
and then see what kind of traction and see what kind of responses we get. That's what I enjoy is reading the
Yeah,
comments.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm still pretty much a well-guarded secret.
Okay. Well, not anymore. Not anymore. Okay.
Okay.
You're going to be out there for the world to
All
see.
right. Okay. That's great, Greg.
Yeah. It's time to expose Jim.
Yeah.
Jim Valley. Yeah.
Thank you. It's really fun talking with you, Greg.
Yeah, it has been you too. I want to say that.
It was better
And
than last week.
yeah, yes, it's a lot better. It's a lot better. And I'm glad we finally got it worked out. I'm
Yeah, me
glad.
too.
All right, Jim. Well, again, you have a good rest of the weekend. And then I will be speaking to you soon, okay?
Okay. Sounds good. Say
All
hello
right.
to all my friends in Texas.